can't change a narcissist, but you can change your strategy. Welcome to the Consultation. My name is Josh Floyd.
I'm Christina Jimenez.
And we're both board-certified family law attorneys here at Jimenez Floyd Law Firm. And today we are going to discuss narcissist.
Co-parenting or attempting to co-parent with a narcissist, and how it is oftentimes impossible and overwhelming and extremely difficult. And unfortunately, in what we do, we have to kind of help you guys navigate the complexities of this. And so we're going to kind of talk about it. So quick disclaimer, we obviously are not diagnosing anyone. We are not, medical professionals. These are just some of the behaviors that we have seen and our clients have told us about. And so things that you kind of need to take into consideration whenever you're trying to figure out how do I parallel parent or co-parent or just overall manage the other parent. Generally, when you're dealing with somebody who has these types of tendencies, it is going to be very high conflict. It is going to be exhausting. It's going to push you mentally, emotionally, financially. And so hopefully this will kind of give you guys some tips and tricks. Just a quick reminder, this is not to be construed as legal advice, right? So we are attorneys, but we are not your attorney. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're dealing with a parent or an opposing party that is a narcissist and it is making your children's lives very difficult, then consult with an attorney in your area. And so, part one. Why people ask this question, like, how do I deal with a narcissist, or I believe my husband's a narcissist, or my ex is a narcissist, and kind of what are the tendencies that these people generally exhibit. So, Floyd.
So, they ask the question because it's a legitimate problem, right? And co-parenting with a narcissist is virtually impossible. Litigating is very, very difficult because I would say most of the time they don't even have attorneys, right? They try to do it on themselves or do it by themselves because that's one of the characteristics is they have to be in control, right? Mm-hmm. They have to win everything, right? And so they do it without attorneys, and you can't control them. The judge can't control them. They don't have somebody to guide them, and so they just go off the wall, and you're in court litigation all the time trying to stop them, and it's chaos. It's chaos.
So a common behavior is going to be someone who has to win every interaction. Did you say that?
I think I said yeah.
Did you identify that in yourself, maybe? Because you're doing it right now.
Yeah.
Like you have to win.
Next podcast is partnering with the narcissist.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so they have to win every interaction. They use the children as leverage. Unfortunately, we see this quite a bit where, listen, if you give me this money, then I'm going to give you the kid. If you let me, take them on this trip, then I will give you this extra time. So then the children become these pawns that they're using to try to manipulate you. If you answer your phone, then I will, allow you to have the children. We had a case where the mother would only allow the father to see the children if he would take her and the children out on a date, and they would have to have dinner together and have to go to her restaurant of her choosing that was very expensive. It was the only way that she would allow him to see his kids, and so of course he had to acquiesce until he hired us and we were able to get a possession schedule in place. Constantly changes the rules. It's another behavior.
Yeah, and so back to kind of that they have to be in control thing, right? They don't compromise, right? And nothing is their fault. Everything is, the system's against me. System hates fathers. System hates mothers. My kid, you're coaching the kids where the kids don't like me. You're doing this, you're doing that. They don't accept responsibility for anything, which in turn then creates unnecessary conflict, right? That's kind of what their means of control is to create conflict, to hurt you where they can, and make you kind of submit to what it is that they want, just so that he will or she will leave you alone and you can have some peace, right?
And so, going back to the financial component of this and kind of how when you're in litigation, it will typically increase costs significantly. It's this whole creating the unnecessary conflict, right? And so a lot of times thank the Lord, when we're in these types of situations, you have two parents who are not exhibiting these narcissistic behaviors. And so things like pick up and drop off are not an issue, right? Things of like, I'm going to have the tonsils removed, because this is what the doctor is saying. Not an issue, right? When you're dealing with somebody who's exhibiting the narcissistic behaviors, they take these little scenarios and things that are typically pretty easy, and they make it super, super difficult, right? We've had another case where the mother was adamant that this kiddo had, some issues with his tonsils, and so she started to circumvent the court order and taking him to all of these different doctors without disclosing it to the father, even though he had the exclusive right to make these medical decisions, to try to paint this narrative that he was neglecting his child medically. And it created all sorts of unnecessary conflict between the medical providers. Once we learned what was going on, we had one doctor that was saying that he needed surgery and like 3 other doctors saying, no, he's absolutely fine. And so in that particular case, we spent lots and lots of money in attorney's fees trying to get mother to stop and filing enforcements, etc. So they rewrite history. We've seen that a lot.
Yeah, they try to make you believe something happened that didn't really happen. And you're like, no, I know. And they've even tried to do it to me, right? I'm not falling for your crap, buddy. Like, I saw the police video of what you were doing. You can't shift it. I'll just play the video for the court.
Right.
So yeah, they think that they have such great, powerful minds that they can rework what you think or what you saw, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people fall for it, right? It's unfortunate that they have that type of control, but it's dangerous.
The rewriting of the history. So I actually just had this happen where mother's testifying and her attorney is new to the case, and I've been on the case for years and years, and the attorney says, have you ever filed a false police report for family violence? And the mother's like, absolutely not, I would never, and that's appalling, and she like goes into this long story. And so I'm just there waiting for cross-examination, knowing that in the previous court proceeding she had signed a document stating that she had fabricated this story because her mother and her sister had told her to do it. And so when I get her back on cross-examination, I'm like, let me show you the police report where you admitted to the police officer that you had fabricated this story. Do you remember that? Answer my question, yes or no. And her response was, I plead the fifth. And so I was like, that's probably a good idea. And so after that, every question that I asked her, she was pleading the fifth, and needless to say, things didn't work out very well for her. But it was amazing to me that in her mind, she had this ability to rewrite what had actually occurred 2 or 3 years prior. So these are things that we see, that our clients tell us about, that we've witnessed in court personally. And unfortunately, it's not good for your kiddos whenever you have a parent that's exhibiting these types of behaviors. So what should we do whenever you're dealing with the person who may exhibit these behaviors?
So the unfortunate part is you can't really co-parent with them because there is no cooperation, which is essential for co-parenting, right? And so there's this new theory called parallel parenting, which is not working together, but working at the same time, kind of for the same goal.
Right.
Right. With as minimal interaction as possible. That's the only way that you can, I guess, I don't want to say keep control of them, but keep them from controlling you, from controlling the situation, and from creating a bunch of drama, emotional, financial, and mental hardships.
Yeah, and I think that when you're dealing with an individual like this, for your own sanity, like for your own mental health, it is very important to set these clear boundaries, right? And to say, like, listen, I'm not going to engage. Like, you are trying to make this exchange very difficult, and the court order very clearly states that I'm supposed to pick up Friday at 6 p.m. at the fire department, and here's the address, and I'm going to be there because that's what the judge told us to do, and not really getting sucked into whatever it is that they're trying to complicate, right? And it's unfortunate when you have to set that boundary, because I do think that it affects the children if you're going straight parallel parenting. But if you're having to choose between the lesser of two evils, I think parallel parenting for your own sanity makes the most sense.
Yeah, I remember I represented a mom one time, and I felt really bad for her because she was legitimately trying to co-parent with this guy, and I could see that he was just constantly taking advantage of her. It was like, hey, can we switch weekends? But then would, not give her weekend, right? And just constantly asking for things. And she legitimately thought it's what's best for the child. And so she was trying to do that. And I kept telling her, like, stop. You've got to follow the order with this guy. Like, you can't give with this guy, right? Generally, I would agree with you. Yes, you want to co-parent. You want to, switch up the schedules if you need to, go back and forth and work together. But with this guy, you can't. He's just taking advantage of you. And you're having all of these problems that I can't help you with because you're not following the order. So the only way that I can stop him is if you follow the order. We had to have like 2 or 3 of those conversations before she finally just started following the order, and then we were able to get her where she needed to be. But she was trying to do what was best for the child in that case, which I respect, but under that scenario was hurting her and the child because he wasn't. Right?
Yeah, and what I would say is, and it's kind of should be commingled or mingled throughout the entire discussion, is if you find yourself in a situation where you're having to raise a child with someone who's exhibiting these behaviors, you really, really should be in therapy so that you learn the tools and resources to be able to navigate, like, this is how I set these boundaries, right? Because typically what I see in this situation is, and it's men and women who are really victims of abuse, because when somebody is a narcissist or they're exhibiting these behaviors, they're abusing you, right? And so then what happens is you get out of this relationship and you're still kind of living in that victim mindset where you continue to allow them to push you even though you're out of the relationship. And so you have to get the mental health, the therapy to be able to say, this is my boundary, I'm not going to allow you to cross it, and I'm actually going to be comfortable with the fact that I know that I can't co-parent with you, but I'm going to do the best that I can with my kiddo when I have him or her, right?
So one of the things that we could do as counsel to help you manage this is create less opportunity for this conflict to happen, right? And so we do that by exchanges at police departments or third parties doing the exchanges, so you're not face to face with this person. We have co-parenting apps like Our Family Wizard, where you're not in direct communication with this guy, right, or girl if she's the narcissist, right? So we can set up orders to where you really never have to have any direct communication or contact with this person, so that you can set those boundaries and stick to those boundaries. And if they violate, then they could be in trouble for it, and that's where we would enforce it.
So what does the court actually care about? And this is one of the things that is so difficult, and we see it a lot, right, where people come in with what we call conclusory statements, right? So, well, the father's a narcissist and so he shouldn't have visitation, right? Or, sometimes the father's a drunk, or the mother is, a drug addict, or she's crazy, right? Okay, those are conclusory statements. Judge is going to say, show me, right? Tell me, what's the evidence to support this conclusory statement? And so coming in and just saying he shouldn't have visitation because he's a narcissist, or he shouldn't have the right to make these decisions because he's a narcissist, it's not going to work, right?
Yeah, I've had narcissists on the other side of the case several times, but I've never had a finding of narcissism.
Right, right. And a lot of times it's the mother saying he's a narcissist, the father saying she's a narcissist, and we're like, okay, what do we do, right? So it's important that you gather evidence, right? So how do you prove that someone is a narcissist? What I will tell you is in the cases where, again, never had the finding, but where the court found that one parent shouldn't have the ability to make certain decisions or limited their possession, I was able to show like messages going back and forth where I had one case where the mother was saying, hey, just a heads up, kiddo has to go and get a tooth extracted, and I'm going to be, at a conference, and so my husband is going to take her, stepdad's taking her, and the immediate response was, oh, your husband's a pedophile, and I'll take my daughter, I'll be there, and just starts attacking mom and the husband, and like insinuating some crazy things. And so it became this issue of, and that was just an isolated event, but there was lots more similar to that, where the judge was like, I don't really think that you need to be a part of these medical decisions and these doctor's appointments anymore, because it was a very, very simple notice, like, hey, just a heads up because I'm a good mom, letting you know this is going to happen, and then you take it to use it and try to attack her and attack her family. So those are the types of things that we're looking for, right? Recordings.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a shifted mindset. It's kind of difficult to get the clients to understand that I'm not going in to try to prove he's a narcissist. I'm going to present evidence of the habits of a narcissist, right? I'm not going to get a finding of narcissism. I'm going to get a finding that this guy is unstable, can't communicate, can't act in the best interest, right? All of these factors that they look at to determine narcissism, but the court's not going to make that finding. They're going to find that he's not acting in the best interest, right? And so recordings is a big one, right? Recording exchanges. The one case we were talking about before this, where we had it happened in the police department lobby, right? He had done some stuff to his child. His child didn't want to go with him, and he read this whole letter and eventually drug her out. She's like 15. Drug her out of the police department lobby.
Cornered her, cornered the mother.
Yeah, knocked the mother's phone out of her hand. It was bad. And that was just one of the things we dealt with in that case. But so fortunately we had the police department recordings there, right? But any exchanges when you're dealing with people like this, you've got to record them, right? Because was that picture's worth 1,000 words, right? You can get on the stand and explain what happened. He can get on to tell his side of the story, right? But if you have a video showing and oftentimes saying, he said ABC is much different than hearing the way he said it, right? And how you respond and things like that. And so recordings are huge in these types of cases.
And again, kind of going back to when you've engaged in a relationship with a person who is exhibiting these behaviors, I see it so often where it is like that party, like the non-narcissist, it doesn't know or feel like they have the ability to stand up for themselves and to garner the evidence, right? And so you have to really kind of empower yourself to be able to say, I can record this, I can confront him, I can send this message, I can, be non-emotional and parallel parent, because that's what you're going to have to do in order to be able to be successful in court, right? So, anything else on that issue?
Yeah, I think just the court doesn't care necessarily about the diagnosis, right? The court cares about the best interest of the child, right? So we're going to be looking at the way that he's talking to you, the child, missed visits, family violence if there's family violence, verbal abuse. Those are the things that we're going to be trying to prove in court, right? And how it impacts the child. That's what the court's going to be concerned with.
Well, and so I guess here we can kind of talk also about psychological evaluations and custody evaluations, right? So in the context of a custody dispute, you can make these requests. Now, I will tell you that psychological evaluations probably going to run you about $3,000 per side. And if you're doing a child custody evaluation and a psychological evaluation, those can run you from $5,000 to $7,000 a side. They get very, very expensive. But in the context of a psychological evaluation / child custody evaluation, I have seen formal diagnoses of this type of behavior, right? And even if they're not doing a formal diagnosis, they will come in and say, these are the tendencies that this parent exhibits, right? And what you're able to do within that context is present, here's all of his medical records, right? Here are all of the text message exchanges. Here are these recordings. Here's the interview with the child, right? Here's the evaluator going in and monitoring the interactions between the child and the kiddo. And so that is something that the courts will take into consideration when rendering an order.
And on that, I would say that you want to be very careful and strategic with that, and you want to make sure that you're consulting with an attorney that knows what they're doing in this area, because this could backfire on you, right? If you request a psych eval, you're making all these accusations of narcissism and all this stuff, and it comes back clean, and that there's nothing wrong with him, and he acts in the best interest of the child, it's going to look like you were trying to interfere with that relationship, which is not going to be good for you. So it's not something that we ask in every case. It's very strategic, very pinpoint, and we make sure we have all the facts and the evidence before we go in that way.
Absolutely. So, part 4, communication strategies. The BIF method. Okay, so this is brief, informative, friendly, and firm. And so when you are talking to the other parent and you believe that they're exhibiting these types of behaviors, remember that, right? Biff. And that is so important, because if you start taking this approach of being overly emotional, right? Like, you're such a narcissist and I can't believe that you would do this and I hate you and all the things, right? Now you look like you're the crazy emotional parent, and they look, and a narcissist is going to come back and say, I can't believe that you're responding in this manner. I was simply asking to exchange the child. And then it's turned against you, right? So you, I feel like that hit home for you.
It's been a lot, yeah.
So remember, Biff, and in all your correspondence, that's how you should be communicating.
Yeah, and I tell them, like, you don't have to argue. You don't have to explain. You just answer the question, right? If exchanges are at 6 o'clock on Friday at HEB, then tell him, I'll be there Friday, 6 o'clock, HEB. And if he wants to debate, don't, just stop responding. You don't have to is it cater to that? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
You don't have to cater to that. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. This is what the order says. That's where you're going to be. Again, brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
Right.
Right.
And what I would say, like, the only caveat is if they're accusing you of some sort of wrongdoing, right? So they're saying, you're the one who slapped our child across the face for no reason, right? It is important that you say, this is not true. I will see you at HEB at 6 p.m., right? Stop with your false allegations. I will be there at 6 p.m. It's important that you do deny false allegations, because you don't want it to be what we call a deemed or an implied admission. But other than that, just keep it simple. My dad always used to tell me that, keep it simple, stupid. And I was like, okay, that's good. So, protecting your children. So, that's difficult, right? Because especially if the other party has possession, access, you can only control what you can control, right, when they're with you, right? But when they are with you, you can remember they're not your therapist, they're not your messengers, they don't need to see the weight of the other parent, coming down on you. You don't need to be emotional. You don't need to talk crap about them. You need to just let your kiddo be a kiddo, so that at least 50% of the time they have a normal, sane, calm, loving parent that is not just really dumping everything on them. Right?
You can't change the other parent. You can't change the way they are. Obviously, if they're harming your child or something like that, right, then you can address it. But you can't change that. All you can control is what you can control, which is what takes place at your house. And you speaking negatively or talking badly about the other parent only hurts the child more, right? So just create an atmosphere where the child's happy and can be a kid. That's the best you can do with it.
So the next thing we kind of touched on this is just the documentation, right? The evidence. I will say that if you are having these types of issues with the other parent, there's different apps. We recommend Our Family Wizard. We represent
We don't represent any of them.
We recommend App Close. And I love these applications because they are a very easy way for us to track the communications between the parties. They're admissible in evidence. Judges like them. And it really, hopefully, will inhibit some of those behaviors because they know that they're being monitored. But even sometimes it won't, and they're just going to keep doing what they do. Now we have it in evidence, right? So, anything else on that?
Yeah, so I see Our Family Wizard and apps like that as just making it easy for us, right? I mean, in the click of a button, we can download every message rather than have to screenshot them. So I love Our Family Wizard. It's great. But yeah, so document. We talked about recordings, text messages, keeping a journal, keeping a calendar. This happened on this day, this happened on this day. That's what you need, I guess.
So I would say, like, one of the things that I've seen happen so often is a client will come to me with their own personal journal, and they will write things out like, on this day, when I was dropping off the child, he threw a shoe at my face and it hit me, and it was, emotionally disturbing, and he laughed at me when it happened. And that's fine. Like, it's helpful to know that event happened, But when you get into court, it becomes he threw the shoe at me, and of course he's going to say, I would never do that, right? And so in this particular case, these types of things had happened, and thankfully she followed my counsel and she started recording interactions, and she ended up actually getting a recording where he had thrown a shoe at her head, and you can hear where he's saying, like, I'll throw something else at you if you don't, like, take care of my daughter, and doing all these things. There was another recording that she was able to get where he's dropping off the kiddo, and he, like, kicks her dog, and you can hear the dog, like, yelp. And this particular judge was a huge animal lover, and Dad ended up, he had, like, the steel toe boots. He worked in the oil field. He ended up getting supervised visitation. There was other stuff that had happened, but I feel like that really, like, just hit home with the judge. So when I took this client from making her journal entries to actually preserving and gathering the evidence, that's whenever she was able to get what she really wanted in her case. So what else? I think that's it on that documentation.
Part 7.
Things you cannot control.
This is, I guess, hard for people to accept, right? So we kind of touched on it a little bit, right? You can't control what's going on over there. You can control your reactions to it. You can control what your child's exposed to for the most part, right? Documentation, evidence, you can control that. But I think if you try to control things you can't control, like if you can try to stop them from being deceptive or stop them from lying and trying to change their personality, you're going to be in for an uphill battle, and it's not going to end well for you. So I think you have to accept the things you cannot control the things you can control, and make the best of your situation.
Yeah, so Kathy at our office, she always talks to me about the let them theory, right? And I think it's Brene Brown. And anytime I get worked up because somebody's doing something, she's just like, let them, right? And I'm just like, okay. I feel so much better about the situation. And it's hard, right? I understand, because these are your kiddos and you're worried about their mental health and the things that they're being exposed to. But what I will tell you is I've heard the speech probably 1,000 times in my career from judges, where they will say, you decided to have a child with this person, right? And it's important that we're not confusing different parenting styles with narcissistic behaviors, right? Because a lot of times it may just be different. It doesn't mean that it's bad, right? And so sometimes you just have to let them, right? You knew their personality when you decided that you were going to, have a child with them. And so you have to be able to kind of have a little bit of peace if it's just different, right? Now, if it's causing harm to your kiddo, then that's a whole other thing. Sometimes you're just not going to be able to control it, and you got to just let it go, right? So what else on that particular issue?
I think that is it. So,
rapid fire questions. Should a client respond to every single text message that they receive?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You're taking the bait if you do that. Do not respond to every message. Respond to the important ones, deny accusations, everything else goes unread or unresponded to.
Okay.
But what if they insult them?
Then...
Let them. I beat you to it.
How did you know, Floyd? Yeah, so just let them. Good answer, Floyd. Should they block? You're making me like red here. Okay. Should they block the other parent?
No. A couple reasons. One is they need to be able to communicate with you about the child. But two, as emotionally draining as it is to receive those text messages, that's evidence that we need. And if you block them, it's evidence we don't have.
Right. And I will say, in my experience, a lot of times judges like really, really get upset if you're blocking the other parent. And even if you're saying, listen, they were harassing me, they were abusing me, etc., they're not going to care. So just don't. Unfortunately, you have to get your mental health straight and just learn to deal with it. Should you wait? Is it your turn? Should I tell my?
Should I block them? No,
Nope.
You said should I block them?
Okay.
I don't know who said what. So should I tell my child that they're a narcissist?
No.
Wait, is
no.
the child's a narcissist or the parent's a narcissist?
Should I
Either way, no, right?
maybe your child's a narcissist. But don't tell them that if they aren't. So, but no, like, don't disparage the other parent. I don't care if it's narcissism, if it's lying, if it's not paying child support, if it's they're not taking you for Christmas to Disney or whatever it is. Don't disparage the other parent. That your kiddo is 50% the other parent, and so when you're talking bad about that parent, you're talking bad about your kiddo, and they don't need that extra weight. So no. Should you correct every lie?
No. Only the important accusations. Everything else, just let them go. Can I record our conversation?
In Texas, if you are a party to the conversation, you can record it. Do not record conversations between the other parent and the child because you're not a party to that conversation, and that is illegal. But otherwise, yes, you can. Should I communicate only through our family wizard or App Close?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, affirmative. Do so.
Next question.
Easy. But what if they violate the order repeatedly?
Then document, right? We've talked about evidence. We have talked about consulting with attorneys, right? Get your evidence, get it in order, go and talk to your attorney, let your attorney file a motion for enforcement, and we can request that they be held in contempt of court. We can also request a modification, right, to restrict their access, to restrict the rights and duties because they're violating the order and the judge isn't going to be happy with them.
And when they get held in contempt, they can go to
Jail.
And when they're in jail, they cannot communicate with you. See how that works?
Let them.
Let them.
So, when should I file a modification? I missed that question.
When your attorney tells you it's time to file a modification. So gather your documentation, like Christina was saying, take it to your attorney, an attorney that knows what they're doing, and they'll tell you when it's time to file.
So, 3 takeaways. First is, we're going to focus on behavior, not labels, right? Number 2?
Your child needs one emotionally stable parent.
Okay,
So
and
don't be crazy emotional.
right. And then number 3 is judges care about the evidence, not the accusations. And so document. So if you are dealing with someone who's exhibiting these behaviors, and if you feel like they are, it's negatively impacting your children, right? We're dealing with significant impairment, mental, physical, emotional, it's very important that you contact an attorney that is local to your particular jurisdiction, and you tell them your story, you show them your evidence, and then allow them to make a decision as to whether or not they believe it would be helpful for you to file a modification, an original suit, an enforcement, etc. So as we always say in these consultation podcasts, we are not medical providers. We are not your attorney. And so you need to consult with your own attorney and follow their advice. Make sure that if you are in the Denton County area, Tarrant County, Dallas County, Midland County, Ector County, that you reach out to our firm. We have several different locations throughout the state of Texas, and we are here to help. Also, make sure that you follow us on all social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If there is a platform, we are likely on it. Thank you guys for listening.